to get my floors their whitest, I use Quicksilver. Speed, it does it fast. I don't know, something like that. Quicksilver, you'll remember it forever. Hail, Internet! It's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about Wandavision, Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2. We open on Wanda and Vision buying a new home in suburbia. It's an homage to the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's black and white. You've got a studio audience and such. We end Episode 2 with Wanda realizing she's pregnant suddenly. Being startled by a sinister beekeeper emerging from the sewers, saying no, rewinding time to the moment she just realized she was pregnant, sans beekeeper, and everything turns to Technicolor and Episode 2. Before we launch into a whole bunch of stuff, because this is kind of like a mystery box type show, Paul, what are your thoughts on Episodes 1 and 2, sir?
I enjoyed it. Owing in large part, I guess, to the importance for me as I was growing up. I was born in '66, so, watched a lot of reruns on TV growing up. So, Dick Van Dyke was perhaps my favorite show growing up. But I certainly watched enough episodes of Bewitched, which is another one that this...
Right. Yeah, I think the first one's probably more of a Dick Van Dyke homage. Episode 2 is more of a Bewitched homage.
Yes.
I would, especially with her, using her powers and kind of that kind of thing.
Yes.
I didn't watch so much of the Dick Van Dyke Show, I guess, since I was 1970, so I was more Bewitched. I remember being confused when they switched the Darrens or whatever. I was like, who's that guy? Anyway, the show is taking place. It appears to be, especially if you take into account what we've seen from the trailers, that each episode is another style of sitcom.
Yes.
And it seems to be going forward in time.
Sure.
For instance, Dick Van Dyke Show, as you mentioned, was in the early to mid 60s. Bewitched was late 60s into early 70s. I've been told apparently that episode 3 is something like a Brady Bunch style thing, and so now you're up into the early 70s. And then I've seen. We got there's a Family Ties thing from the trailer. It looks very Family Ties-y, 80s. So I'm thinking somehow, I think it's important that the show is going forward in time, and maybe that has something to do with the mystery box angle of it as well. That it's important for her to get to modern day, perhaps. With that in mind, I was trying to think of what other sitcoms might be in, chronologically speaking, might be showing up. It occurred to me one that I feel like almost has to be in there just because of the setting and the name of the thing, Happy Days. I would feel like Happy Days almost should be one of these, if not, I don't know. That's mid 70s to mid 80s.
It's going back before the era of the first show that we saw, so you could do that in terms of popularity. Certainly, it was number one for many years. I'd be surprised.
Oh, you're saying though because I get you because it itself was an homage to a previous time.
In the 50s,
I got you. I got you. Good point. Maybe All in the Family.
You could say that both Dick Van Dyke and Bewitched were influenced. It's like they didn't. They still had some remnants of sort of culture from the 50s. It was definitely more the 60s and 70s. One thing we saw, which in the previews, which might go back to your argument, is Wanda is doing direct address to a screen, sort of like The Office, or more appropriately, since the family show, Modern Family.
Good point.
Maybe that's another one we should be expecting.
As we're approaching,
that might be a good one to sort of establish the break in dramatic force, where you start to have a direct address to the camera, where she might Wanda might start talking about why she's in that situation, or what she expects to get out of it, or what she's experiencing.
Little personal asides that we get, like her inner monologue,
right?
Kind of thing. Yeah. So that's just we're theorizing where I think it's 9 episodes total. So where these 9 episodes are headed.
Right.
So one of the things I also noticed was that episode 1 ends essentially with them getting married. Right? Hey, why is this day special? Let's say it's the day we got married. Let's get our rings. Bling.
Well,
day ends.
They were saying it, so it was more sort of like not necessarily actually. Well, I guess they did say their vows, so you could say that they did get
right.
married.
I do,
Yeah.
and then they turn the TV off, and so I feel like that's kind of like we reach this important relationship milestone, and we ascend to the next show, and then in this show, the big milestone was now I'm pregnant, and and now they ascend to the next show. It's almost like a. First comes love, then comes marriage.
Right,
I don't know,
right.
maybe we're going to see, each of these shows ends with kind of a relationship milestone, ascend to next show, perhaps.
Yeah.
That might be
We still haven't seen, but maybe we'll still see the scenes of Wanda and Vision kissing in a tree.
Right, that's coming. It's got to be, right? They have to be on a bicycle built for 2. That's got to be a thing.
Because one of the scenes that we saw, it was one of the first images we saw actually in the trailers, was where it seems to happen for the first time, where Wanda is in, I think, more contemporary clothes, and they sort of, establish that there's a world around them that is a TV world. And so maybe that's what we haven't gotten yet, which is sort of
gotcha.
How it began scenes.
Now, one of the things we're seeing, we get dropped clues that Sword is trying to contact Wanda. Sword, we got a glimpse of that. Nick Fury's on the spaceship, basically. Yes. And that's, it's like Sword is like an arm of S.H.I.E.L.D. that is dealing with extraterrestrial threats, that kind of thing. So anyway, so Sword, good guys, are occasionally showing up. We see at the end of episode 1 when Vision clicks the TV off, watching the TV is someone from Sword.
Right.
Also, when the beekeeper...
I wonder if it is strictly just Sword. There have been speculations that the beekeeper is the Grim Reaper.
There's speculation of that, although he's got a Sword logo on his back.
That's true. You're right.
Not to say that means, well, we got it. How could you possibly wear a Sword logo and not be Sword? But what I'm getting is that you've got, in the case of the beekeeper and Geraldine, who we know is Monica Rambeau.
Correct.
So what I'm thinking is Monica Rambeau is also a member of Sword, and these are folks trying to enter this bubble, this alternate reality bubble. And when they do, they suddenly have to play in the rules of that game. Their reality is switched. Right. So Monica Rambeau is no longer Monica Rambeau. She's Geraldine. No. Right. The agent coming in through the sewers, whatever, coming in through some kind of trap door into the bubble, suddenly is now a beekeeper. It's like, and so
there's
this extra issue.
Beekeeping outfit maybe is a way of keeping him from being, affected by that environment.
Good point. Yeah, like a hazmat suit of some kind.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so also the fact that Wanda picks up the helicopter, I think perhaps Monica was using a helicopter to try to get in. When it entered that reality, it turned into a toy helicopter. She turned into Geraldine. I think that's maybe how
that could be
Monica's story maybe put her into there. But
that could be.
Because she has no memory of why she's there. She doesn't even remember her name, right? She's just, I'm Geraldine. That's who I am. So she's now trapped, just like everyone else. Which maybe also means that all the neighbors are trapped. They're obviously coming forward in time with her.
Sure.
And so they could be actual people as well. The big theory is that Agnes, the neighbor, is Agatha Harkness.
Right.
She's a witch who was, like, in the comics, was a mentor to Wanda, but also I guess she worked with Mephisto, and they were attempting to try to get Wanda to have kids. And, like, basically, I think I didn't read this comic, so I'm taking this on third-party stuff, but it sounds like perhaps they had designs on getting the progeny of Wanda and Vision. Which could be the the plot device for this season.
Show, yeah.
You know, since it does seem to be having Wanda have kids is obviously important so far. You know, like they do the talent show for the children, and then she's like, "Oh, look, I'm pregnant now." And so it could be that Agatha is there on behalf of, say, Mephisto. She mentioned something about when they're like, "Oh, the devil's in the details." She says, "That's not the only place the devil is."
Yes.
So that perhaps she's there as Mephisto's agent to kind of keep things going. In fact, she's the one. Think about episode 1. What the misconception in that is, what's the special day about? We don't know. Vision thinks, Hart, that's my boss's name. It's the day we're supposed to bring my boss to dinner. Well, Agnes is like, hey, this is like, you should be intimate with Vision. That's a special day. Like, in other words, she was like basically trying to get Wanda to have sex. You know, like pushing that narrative.
Sure, yeah.
Perhaps there is the "we want your offspring" magical being.
Maybe so.
I like the way that episode 2 played out with the magic show, in that the magic wasn't the magic, right? Like, yes, we're magical. Yeah. What we have to, the magic is we have to make it look like it's not magic to fit in. And I thought that was really cool. I like that turnabout.
Yeah.
You know, how does a magical person fit in a non-magical world?
Right. Yeah, and the whole point is that it's fake, so it's interesting. It's not the same, perhaps, commentary that Samantha would have made. It's interesting because I feel like in the course of Wanda on the movies, it hasn't been expressed as magic so much. You know, at least in terms of what they've called it.
That's a good point. They try to keep things science-based. When Doctor Strange started coming into the MCU, we started seeing a little bit of a morphing in the idea of magic, and now I think they're going to lean really heavy into it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And certainly in the comics, it's magic, you know. So, although I think I'd seen an expression of what her powers are actually somehow subverting the probability around her. So it's like, it's not very probable at all that this meteor will just bounce, you know, on the planet. Well, I'll change that, you know.
So if I were to sum up what I think is happening, and probably wrong, but what I think is happening is, in her grief at the loss of Vision, Wanda either on her own or was encouraged to create a reality that she could live happily ever after. With Vision. And so she creates this alternate reality where, cool, Vision and I are having a relationship and everything's great. Meanwhile, outside her alternate reality bubble, Sword or S.H.I.E.L.D., those folks are like, whoa, what's this? Like, it has some kind of physical manifestation in the world. And they're like, we have to, Wanda's in trouble, we should deal with it. And then this other force, perhaps Agatha and Mephisto, some third party, has now decided to exploit the situation for their own ends. And so I think you've got three points of view, or three protagonists, antagonists. You got Wanda, Sword, third party. That's my thought. But do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I wonder, because we've seen scenes in the previews wherein Agatha or Agnes is in a car and she sees Vision and she asks Vision if he's come to save them.
And she's wearing a witch costume. It seems like it's Halloween.
Right, exactly.
And then she says something like,
color, so it seems like it's something that hasn't occurred yet.
Correct.
What I mean to say is not like that scene where everybody sort of comes into place. I think goes from color to black and white.
I got you.
So, perhaps.
Well, she also says in that moment, you're dead, right? Doesn't she say,
yes,
she tells him he's dead?
Right. Exactly.
Which is who knows? Maybe that's a joke in the moment, but.
Yeah, that's true. It might be, yeah. Except it seems like more of a, at least the way it comes off there, is more of a.
Yeah, more serious.
Her really looking, maybe Agatha. Saying, wait a minute, I don't understand what's going on, aren't you dead? So maybe it's the real consciousness of that character, and not this fake consciousness that exists as Wanda's neighbor.
And to that point, interesting scene that it's played for laughs, but it's really odd. And I think it makes a little more sense if you look at it from the point of view of Agatha is like Wanda's prison warden or something. It's the moment when the mailman comes by and she goes like, pew, 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 pew. And like, right. she pretends shoots at him, and then he's like, whoa, don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger, or something like that. And she's like, ha, 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 ha. If you take that into mind of, she's just making sure that this guy is message deliverer in this world, and not someone stealthily trying to send a message to Wanda from the outside. You know what I mean? Like, she's monitoring the mailman, basically, to make sure it's not something that might give Wanda a clue as to what's going on. Like, okay. This mock shooting thing. Anyway, it was just a weird scene. I was like, why would you do that? I don't know. Like, there are a lot of little moments like that where they're like, let me overanalyze this now. And so those things. But
yeah, I wonder if it's possible that if Agnes / Agatha was attempting to help Wanda through her grief and somehow got caught up in...
Certainly could be. Maybe she's the one who's like, you know what, maybe you, as a therapy thing, you could create this world in which everything works out and you can work through this. And then she gets caught up in it, and then suddenly it's like, oh crap, now we can't get out. Could be. That could be a thing. She could be a benevolent force within this, trapped in this world.
Yeah, maybe affected by Mephisto without her knowing.
So let's talk about the ads for a second, because you had a cool observation about the ads. We get one per episode.
Just brought up someplace is that you look at both of the commercials as related to Wanda's trauma.
Right.
So the first one about a Stark toaster. Certainly, by now anybody who's been looking at images from the comics will have seen Wanda calling Vision a toaster. And he is made by Stark Industries in some ways, right? Tony made him, so he is like a Stark toaster. But yes. Yeah, that's true. Wanda and Pietro, they were bombed as kids. Their parents died as a result of them. So one thing they talked about was, we saw the bomb and it had Stark on it. So in the commercial, they step over to the Stark toaster, and they turn it on, and you see a little beeping, and it's red. So it's the only bit of color in that whole image is the beeping of the red thing, like a bomb, that eventually, boom, but then it's standing around to sort of like waiting for this effect. It's like you've never heard of cutting. Boom, and then the toaster, the toast comes out of the toaster. So that perhaps is calling back to that bit of trauma. And then, so in other words,
the moment she lost her parents is what you're saying.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
And the second commercial is Strucker, who is Baron von Strucker, is the one who was using the Infinity Stone to affect them so they could become mutants. Maybe it was painful,
Oh, certainly painful, right? They were in cells, and they were they were being tortured, basically, is what,
Yeah, but, so I was rewatching Avengers Age of Ultron last night, and, it was interesting how they discussed utilizing the twins, as they called them, and sort of how they were sort of, like, deciding to do their own thing anyway. Yeah.
No, so I really like that notion that these commercials are reminders of her past pain, like her pain being morphed into this otherwise happy world. It's an interruption of a commercial, like, hey, here's a reminder, bad things happen to you. A little quick aside: the actor who's in the 2 commercials, I know him as he's Ithamar. He is a guy who was a Second City guy. When I was taking classes at Second City, he was on the main stage, and so I watched him. I don't know. I watched him probably 30 or 40 times performing on the main stage. Very, very funny guy.
Enriquez.
There you go. I never knew his last name. And so anyway, very funny, very talented comedian. If they haven't really tested his chops yet, but if they do,
I wonder where
he's up
Victoria
for it.
Blade comes from. Now she had her beginning in the Steppenwolf Theater.
Ah, okay. 2 Chicago folks.
Yep, two Chicago folks.
If I had to guess as to where maybe another painful commercial reminder might be, it would be the death of her brother, right? I mean, that's
Right. Yes.
You feel like there's got to be a Quicksilver reference coming up here. If so, we'll see how that plays out. If indeed there's like a hey, whatever I use to get my floors their whitest, I use Quicksilver. Bling, speed. It does it fast. I don't know, something like that. Quicksilver. You'll remember it forever.
I have high hopes that we'll get actually. I know it's a lot to ask for, but the alternate version of Quicksilver.
Oh, sure. The guy from the X-Men.
Evan Peters, yeah.
You could even just imagine, instead of the commercial, maybe in this alternate reality, Quicksilver's alive. I don't know. She could, but I feel like they've already set the setting now. These are the characters you're going to see progress through the ages, and you're not going to necessarily get a lot of new folks coming in. Like, I have a new neighbor now, or, oh, here's my brother. I mean, maybe, but probably not.
You certainly get that sort of plot point on sitcoms all the time.
That's true. So, like Perfect Strangers or whatever. It's my brother.
Yes.
From overseas.
Right. But yeah, so it's certainly possible. It certainly would be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that most excites me about the show is how it will change the nature, how it will bring in alternate realities. People have described what's happening now as a pocket universe. So yeah, maybe some weird alternate. Who knows?
Sure. And we, I do like that the comedy they're trying to go with is they're trying to stay indicative to the time. Like, for instance, we see these like Red Scare style jokes of so-and-so's a communist. And I don't dine with Bolsheviks and whatever. So I imagine that's a thing that they'll keep going as we go through the age of the, eras. We'll get comedy that was kind of directed toward that era, which I think it's a challenge. It can go off the rails, but I do think it's a cool idea that these same characters, we're going to see them played out in these different environments. I think that's really cool. While all the jokes didn't land, there were some funny bits in here. I liked my favorite was during the talent show when playing the piano, and then she turns the piano into a 2-dimensional cardboard cutout, and then you just cut to the guy like, that was my grandmother's piano. Which is great, because it's true. It's like, hey, I just fooled everybody, and yet there's the guy who's like, wait, I donated that piano to this thing. Where did it go? That was pretty funny.
And also when Vision put the hat through himself, and Wanda creates mirrors behind him to explain, this is how the trick happened.
Right.
And someone asked, is that how mirrors work?
Yeah. So certainly some silly moments. And these episodes are short.
I liked seeing in that episode Emma Caulfield, who's now Emma Caulfield Ford from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So it was nice to see her as Dottie.
Oh, right. Okay. I was kind of like, where have I seen her before? Okay.
Yeah.
And she might have a bigger part to play, too, right? She's the alpha in the neighborhood, supposedly. Yes. And she has some cryptic lines where she says something like, to get blood out of linen, you take it out yourself. Or something like,
yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah. She said she doesn't trust Wanda, but then in the end, she fortifies her position, invalidates them. You won. You were obviously
right.
So it'll be interesting to see as we understand more what's going on. is it a combination of this situation and Wanda's misery, and then powers affecting this? So one thing I've heard suggested is that there was some anomaly that they asked Wanda to look into, and now she's trapped in it, and so that's why they're trying to communicate with her.
True, because I think we can assume that SWORD thinks somebody did something to her, right? They're like, who did this to you, Wanda?
Yep.
So they think Wanda is trapped, and maybe rightfully so. But they're not thinking like, oh, Wanda did this and now we got to fix it. They're like, Wanda's in trouble. We got to save her.
Right. If they just sort of came upon her like, wow, look at this situation. Maybe SWORD should come is interesting, actually.
Right. You're right. You know? The fact that it's the extraterrestrial threat people.
Yeah, which makes me wonder if it's not like, oh, something fell to Earth,
or and the Skrulls or something or whatever.
And so, hey, they came to Wanda saying, hey, could you, they rang on the Avengers Castle, and she came to the door.
Ding dong!
Could you look into this? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. Or
what the hell?
Someone told her to do that.
That's a good idea. I like that notion. Yeah, okay. She was on a mission, and things went haywire. It could be a version of Wonder Woman. She found a wishing stone. She wished for her true love to be alive again.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It is a cool show. It's a little bit of a slow burn, but I think the fact that it's 2 half-hour episodes too, I think helps.
Yeah.
I think if it had been 2 hour-long episodes, I think it might have gotten a little tedious, but it didn't get tedious. It kept the pace. It kept enough intrigue. And we know it's going somewhere,
right?
So we know these characters.
I've heard from a few people. Mark Bernardin is a person who's an example who is certainly saying if it weren't Marvel, he wouldn't be watching past the first episode. And they aren't giving you as much as say he made note of the fact he compared it to say Lost, which gave you a lot more sort of mystery. Outside of some of the aspects of it, I'm curious to see what all of our viewers think. Are they satisfied with the way that the mystery's playing out?
I think
it'll be interesting to see if we get to the end of this season, and it might be the only season, we don't know.
That's true. Might
but
be
if we get to the end
miniseries.
of the season and feel like maybe they should have just done 1 episode with that TV premise, not 2. We'll see what we think. Right now, I'm fine with it because, like I said, I've grown up with that TV. So for me, there's a lot of nice stuff.
A little nostalgia,
yeah.
Well,
and commentary that they're doing, right? I feel like stuff that's talking about the different ways, the different aspects of that television from that era. One of the things that I just recently saw is an interview with. Kevin Feige, who was talking about how he, of course, grew up with that sort of television and viewed it on, Nick at Night, and it's very, important to him. So, he certainly had a chance, I'm sure, to say, hey, let's cut the amount of TV, and was probably like, no, that's fine. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I think obviously the show is called WandaVision. So it's not just the Wanda and Vision, but WandaVision being like, and the studio brought to you by WandaVision. I think it's definitely TV will be. I think maybe every episode we will probably get maybe 1 episode where we go outside and see SWORD's point of view, perhaps something like that.
We have seen scenes from people running to a place like in a that's a.
And I think we see Monica getting ejected
blasted
from
out,
this,
right?
Yeah, or something like that.
Exactly. So that sort of supports my thing about something falling to Earth, and
all right.
Maybe they're all outside, sort of moderating the situation.
Okay, all right. I think also a good, maybe a better analogy than Lost would be something that we covered quite a bit. Legion.
Oh yeah,
the show Legion. Legion is Professor X's son. The guy can warp reality and does so.
Yes.
And so he, you're never quite sure if you're in
Right. Yes. That's true.
the warped reality of either he or the antagonist, the
Right.
Shadow King.
Yep.
And so it plays out in a similar way. Now, I don't think he does the TV premise so much, but still, it's like, hey, here's my happy childhood, but it wasn't so happy, and it's my creepy childhood, whatever. Anyway, you could see definitely connections between Legion's powers in that show and Wanda's powers in this show.
Right. Sure. Yes. Most definitely.
So maybe he'll show up. He's an X-Men. Here we go. He comes in. I can help you, Wanda. Help me, Wanda. Anyway, they do help me, Rhonda, in this one. But anyway,
Yes.
looking forward to seeing where this goes. And we're on board. We're going to be talking about this, and we're going to be talking about future episodes here of The Expanse.
Yes.
So come on back for that. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.